I spent Christmas alone, the only sound in my apartment, the ticking of an old clock that seemed to mock my loneliness. My own daughter had replaced me with her new boyfriend at the dinner table. I wasn't even worth a chair. The lottery ticket in my purse would change everything, but I didn't know it yet. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would share. And if for even a second this feels familiar, I only ask that you like this video and subscribe. It will help me keep opening my heart. My name is Eleanor, and at 72 years old, I thought I knew what my life would look like. Every morning, I wake up in my cramped studio apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where the radiator clanks like chains and the smell of my neighbor's bacon mingles with the dampness that never quite leaves these old buildings. The floorboards creak under my feet as I shuffle to make coffee in a pot that's older than my grandchildren. My arthritis makes every movement deliberate, every step a small negotiation with pain. But it's not the physical ache that weighs on me most. It's the silence. The kind of silence that fills up a room when your phone doesn't ring, when your family forgets you exist until they need something. I used to have a house full of laughter in Queens, where Sunday dinners brought everyone together around a table that could barely hold all the food I'd spend days preparing. Now I eat cereal standing at my kitchen counter, watching pigeons fight over crumbs on the fire escape. The apartment is filled with remnants of a life that used to matter. Photo albums stack on a rickety bookshelf, showing Christmas mornings when my daughter Jessica was young, gap-toothed and grinning as she tore through wrapping paper. There are pictures of family vacations to the Jersey Shore, of birthday parties where I wore my hair in perfect curls and my husband Robert stood beside me, his arm around my waist like he actually wanted to be there. That December morning started like any other. I was stirring sugar into my coffee when my phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. For a moment, my heart lifted. Maybe she was calling to include me in Christmas plans. Maybe she'd realized how long it had been since we'd spoken, but the words on the screen felt like ice water in my veins. Hi, Mom. Just wanted to let you know we're doing Christmas at our place this year. It'll be small. Just me, Derek, and his kids. Hope you understand. Derek, her boyfriend of 8 months who looked at me like I was something he'd stepped in. The man who'd convinced my daughter that her 72-year-old mother was too much baggage for their new life together. I read the message 3 times. Each reading making my chest tighter. Small, just them. I wasn't even an afterthought. I was nothing. I sank into the threadbare armchair that faced my window, clutching my phone like it might suddenly buzz with a different message. A joke. An invitation hiding behind cruel words. But that text sat there, final and cold. Outside, snow began to fall on Broadway. And I watched people hurrying past with their shopping bags and their purpose. Their families waiting for them somewhere warm. You see, I had given Jessica everything. When she was in college at NYU, struggling with tuition payments, I mortgaged my house to help her graduate debt-free. When she got divorced from her first husband, I gave her my savings to start over, to put a down payment on that apartment in Brooklyn where she now lived with Derek. When her daughter Emma needed money for art school, I liquidated my retirement fund. I'd worked 2 jobs for 40 years, as a secretary at a law firm during the day and cleaning offices at night, just to make sure my family never went without. You're the best mom in the world, Jessica used to tell me, hugging me tight after I'd hand her another check. I don't know what I'd do without you, but apparently she knew exactly what she could do without me. She could do Christmas without me. I spent that day wandering through my apartment like a ghost in my own life. I opened the hall closet where I kept the Christmas decorations, boxes labeled in my careful handwriting from years when decorating mattered. There was the angel that used to crown our tree, her golden dress faded but still catching light. There were strings of lights I'd untangled every December, cursing softly while Robert laughed at my determination to make everything perfect. Perfect. What a joke. The Christmas cards I'd already written sat on my kitchen table, addressed to family members who wouldn't think to send me one. The gifts I'd bought weeks ago, wrapped in red paper with gold ribbon, sat in a shopping bag by the door. Gifts that would go undelivered to people who'd already decided I was surplus to their requirements. That evening, I called my son Michael in Los Angeles. He was Jessica's older brother, a successful lawyer with a wife and twin boys I barely knew. The time difference meant I was calling during his dinner, and I could hear the clatter of dishes, the sound of his family living their life without any need for me in it. Mom, hi, what's up? His voice was distracted, impatient. I was wondering about Christmas, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She's not including me this year. Oh, a pause. Well, Mom, we're actually going to Sarah's parents in Colorado this year. The boys are into skiing now and, of course, I said quickly. Of course, that sounds lovely. Maybe we can FaceTime on Christmas morning? Before we head out? Maybe, if it was convenient. if his family didn't have somewhere more important to be. Sure, honey, that would be nice. But we both knew it wouldn't happen. FaceTime calls were for people who mattered, and I was learning, slowly and painfully, that I no longer did. After I hung up, I stood in my kitchen staring at nothing. The refrigerator hummed. The upstairs neighbors walked around in heavy shoes. Outside, New York lived its vast, indifferent life while I felt myself disappearing inside my own. How had this happened? When did I become someone my own children could discard so easily? I thought about all those years when I was the center of their world. When Jessica would crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. When Michael would bring me pictures he'd drawn of our family, always with me in the middle, wearing the blue dress I loved, my arms stretched wide enough to hold everyone. I was the one who kissed scraped knees and packed lunches and saved money for school clothes and sat through every soccer game and dance recital. I was the one who held this family together with love and sacrifice and endless, endless giving. And now I was the one who didn't get a chair at the table. 3 days before Christmas, I decided to walk to the 7-Eleven on Canal Street. It was a habit I'd developed since moving to Manhattan. Daily walks to justify tiny purchases, a newspaper or a pack of gum, anything to get out of that apartment and pretend I had somewhere to go. The city in December is both magical and cruel, full of families and couples and friends laughing together, all of them highlighting exactly how alone you are. I was standing in line behind a young man buying roses, probably for a girlfriend who'd light up when she saw them, when I noticed the lottery terminal. Powerball. The jackpot was up to $300 million. $300 million. An amount so impossible it felt like talking about unicorns. I'd never bought a lottery ticket in my life. Robert used to say it was throwing money away, that you had better odds of getting struck by lightning. But Robert was dead now, had been for 5 years, and his opinions no longer governed my choices. The few choices I had left. Can I get a Powerball ticket? I asked the cashier, surprising myself. He was a young man with kind eyes who'd always been patient with my small purchases and slow counting of change. Quick pick, or you want to choose your numbers? Quick pick, I said, because I didn't trust myself to choose anything anymore. He handed me the ticket, tiny white slip of paper with numbers that meant nothing to me. I folded it carefully and put it in my wallet, next to the photo of Jessica's elementary school graduation, where she's hugging me tight, her face radiant with pride that her mom came to watch her get her certificate. That night, I sat in my chair by the window and thought about those numbers. What would I do with $300 million? The question was so absurd it almost made me laugh. I'd probably give most of it away, just like I'd given everything else away. That's what I did. That's who I was. Eleanor the giver. Eleanor the bank. Eleanor who could be counted on to say yes to anything anyone needed. But maybe, just maybe, having that kind of money would make them want me around again. Maybe I'd matter if I could solve even bigger problems, pay for even more things. Maybe Derek would look at me differently if I could buy them a house, pay for vacations, set up trust funds for his kids. The thought made me sick to my stomach, but I couldn't shake it. Was I really so desperate for love that I'd fantasize about buying it? Yes, I was. Christmas Eve arrived gray and bitter cold. I woke up to my phone buzzing with a message from Jessica. For one wild moment, I thought she'd changed her mind, that maybe Christmas morning would find me at her table after all. Hope you have a nice quiet day, Mom. Derek's kids are sick, so it's probably good we kept it small anyway. Love you. Love you. 2 words thrown onto the end of a message designed to make me feel better about being excluded. Love you, but not enough to include you. Love you, but not enough to make room. Love you, but not the way you love us. Not the way you've always loved us. Completely and without condition. I spent Christmas morning in my pajamas, watching the Macy's parade on a television older than some of the performers. I called Michael, but the call went straight to voicemail. They were probably already in Colorado, carving down mountain slopes, their cheeks red with cold and happiness I wasn't part of. Around noon, my neighbor Mrs. Ramirez knocked on my door. She was about my age, a widow from Puerto Rico who lived in the apartment next to mine with her daughter Maria. Mrs. Ramirez had been devastated when her husband died 2 years ago, and lately we'd found comfort in each other's loneliness. "Eleanor, honey, you're alone today?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "I'm fine, Carmen, really. No one should be alone on Christmas. Maria made too much food. Come eat with us." There was such kindness in her voice, such genuine care, that I almost started crying right there in my doorway. When was the last time someone had invited me somewhere because they wanted me there, not because they needed something from me? I spent Christmas afternoon with the Ramirez family, Carmen, Maria, Maria's boyfriend Carlos, and their baby daughter Sophia. The apartment was tiny like mine, but it was full of laughter and music and the smell of Pernod and pastels. They included me in their conversations, asked about my life, listened to my stories about Jessica and Michael when they were young. Baby Sophia fell asleep in my arms while her parents cleaned up, and for those few hours, I felt useful again, wanted again. "Your children are fools," Carmen whispered to me as I was leaving, "but their foolishness doesn't define your worth." I carried those words back to my apartment like a prayer. The next morning, December 26th, I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest. Something had shifted while I slept, some fundamental understanding about my life and my place in it. I made coffee and sat by the window, watching the city wake up after Christmas. All the magic stripped away and leaving behind ordinary Tuesday morning reality. I thought about Carmen's words. Their foolishness doesn't define your worth. It was such a simple idea, but it felt revolutionary. All my life, I'd measured my value by how much my family needed me, how much I could provide, how much I could give. When they stopped needing me, I assumed I was worthless. But maybe the problem wasn't my worth. Maybe the problem was their ability to see it. I pulled the lottery ticket from my wallet, that little slip of paper I'd forgotten about entirely. The drawing had been Christmas night. I could look up the numbers on my phone, just for fun, just to see how far off my random numbers were from the impossible dream of winning. I pulled up the lottery website and found the winning numbers: 12, 22, 30, 45, 52, and Powerball 18. Then I looked at my ticket. 12, 22, 30, 45, 52, Powerball 18. I looked again. The numbers blurred as my hands shook. I blinked hard and looked a third time. Every single number matched. I had won $300 million. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just sat there in my threadbare armchair, holding a piece of paper worth more money than I could conceptualize. More money than my family had taken from me over the years. More money than I'd ever dreamed of having. $300 million. I was rich. I was free. I was powerful in a way I'd never been in my entire life. And my first thought, God help me, was how much this would change everything with Jessica and Michael. How they'd want to see me now. How they'd include me in everything. How Derek would probably propose to Jessica just to get closer to my fortune. My second thought was disgust at my first thought. I spent the rest of that morning walking around my apartment in a daze, touching familiar objects that suddenly seemed to belong to a different person. The chipped coffee mug I'd been drinking from for 10 years. The stack of bills on my counter that I'd been dreading. The Christmas cards I'd written but never sent. All of it felt like artifacts from someone else's life. I called the lottery office to verify the win. The woman on the phone was professional but excited for me, explaining the process for claiming the prize, asking if I wanted the lump sum or annual payments. $300 million over 30 years, or $180 million all at once, minus taxes. $180 million. After taxes, still more than I could spend in several lifetimes. "Mrs. Davies," the woman said, "I have to recommend that you immediately contact a financial advisor and a lawyer. A win of this size will change your life completely. And please, don't tell anyone about this until you've claimed the prize and have professional help in place. Don't tell anyone." The irony wasn't lost on me. I had no one to tell anyway. That afternoon, I walked to the bank where I'd been a customer for 20 years. The same bank where I'd transferred thousands of dollars to Jessica over the years. Where I'd liquidated my retirement fund. Where I'd watched my savings account dwindle to almost nothing as I gave and gave and gave. I opened a safety deposit box and put the ticket inside, along with photos I'd printed of the winning numbers from multiple sources. Evidence that this was real, that this was happening, that Eleanor Davies from the Upper West Side had won the biggest lottery jackpot in New York State history. Walking home, I felt like I was carrying a secret that could reshape gravity itself. Every person I passed on Broadway was living in a world where I was still poor Eleanor, still struggling Eleanor, still disposable Eleanor. But I knew the truth now. I had power. I had choices. I had the ability to say no and to make it stick. Over the next few days, I hired a lawyer recommended by the Lottery Commission, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in sudden wealth management. I hired a financial advisor who helped me understand investment strategies and tax implications. I hired an accountant to structure my affairs in ways that would protect my assets and my privacy. For the first time in my adult life, I had a team of professionals working for me, advising me, respecting my decisions. It was intoxicating. The most important thing, Patricia told me during our first meeting, is that you control the narrative. You decide who knows what and when. You decide what kind of relationship you want to have with your family going forward. This money gives you the power to set boundaries and make them stick. Boundaries. I'd never really understood that word before. It sounded harsh, selfish, But Patricia explained it differently. Boundaries aren't walls, she said. They're gates with you holding the key. You can open them for people who treat you with respect and love. You can close them for people who don't. The money doesn't change who you are, Eleanor, but it can change how much power other people have over your life. I spent a week thinking about that conversation. A week imagining different scenarios for how I might tell Jessica and Michael about the win. Would I surprise them at a family dinner? Would I call them up and simply announce it? Would I use the money as leverage to get them to include me again? But the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Not at the money, but at myself. At the woman I'd been for 72 years. The woman who measured her worth by other people's needs. The woman who bought love with sacrifice. And still ended up alone on Christmas. I decided to wait. Meanwhile, my life began to change in small ways. I hired a housekeeper to come twice a week, something I'd never been able to afford. I bought new clothes. Not practical clothes from the discount stores I usually shopped at, but beautiful things that made me feel attractive and confident. I had my hair professionally done for the first time in decades, traded my gray bob for silver highlights that caught the light. Carmen Ramirez noticed the changes immediately. "Eleanor, you look different," she said one morning when we ran into each other in the hallway. "Happier. I've been taking better care of myself," I told her, which was true enough. "Good. You deserve to be taken care of, even if you have to do it yourself. Especially if I had to do it myself," I thought. 2 weeks after Christmas, Jessica called. I was sitting in my newly cleaned apartment, wearing a cashmere sweater I'd bought at Bergdorf's, feeling like a different person entirely. "Hi, Mom. How was your Christmas?" she asked, her voice carrying the fake brightness she used when she felt guilty about something. "It was lovely," I said. And for the first time in years, I wasn't lying to make her feel better. "Oh, good. I was worried about you being alone. Not worried enough to include me," I thought. But I just said, "Thank you, honey. That's sweet. How was yours?" She launched into a detailed description of her perfect Christmas with Derek and his children, how they'd opened presents by the fireplace, had a big breakfast, played board games all day. Everything I'd imagined, everything I'd been excluded from. "It sounds wonderful," I said when she finished. "Yeah, it really was." A pause. "Listen, Mom, Derek's car broke down and we need to get it fixed before he can get to work. It's going to be about $2,000, and our savings are kind of tight after Christmas shopping." There it was. The real reason for the call. Not to check on me, not to make sure I was okay after being left out of Christmas. She wanted money. In the old days, I would have said yes immediately. I would have worried about Derek losing his job, about Jessica struggling financially, about being a bad mother if I didn't help. I would have found the money somehow, even if it meant choosing between groceries and rent. "I'm sorry, Jessica," I said calmly. "I can't help with that right now." The silence on the other end was so complete I thought the call had dropped. "Mom, what did you say?" I said I can't help with that. "But it's only $2,000. I know you have it." I almost laughed. $2,000. A rounding error compared to my current net worth. But the money wasn't the point anymore. Actually, I don't have it. And even if I did, I wouldn't be able to help right now. "Why not?" Her voice was changing, getting sharp, demanding. "You always help. That's what families do." "Families?" I repeated. "Is that what we are?" "Of course we're family. What kind of question is that?" "The kind of question someone asks when their daughter doesn't invite them to Christmas dinner." Another long silence. "Mom, we explained that. Derek's kids were sick and Derek's kids, not your kids. Derek's kids got priority over your mother. That's not how it was." "Then how was it, Jessica? Help me understand. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like I'm your family when you need money, and a stranger when you need to count chairs around the dinner table." I could hear her breathing, could almost see her face getting red the way it used to when she was a child, and got caught doing something wrong. "You're being dramatic, Mom. Dramatic. That's what people called you when you finally stopped pretending their behavior was acceptable." "Maybe I am," I said. "Or maybe I'm finally being honest." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear this time. From power. From the incredible, terrifying freedom of finally saying what I'd been thinking for years. Within an hour, Michael called. "Mom, Jessica's really upset. She says you were cruel to her about Christmas." "Did she tell you why I might be upset?" "She said you're mad because they had a small Christmas dinner and didn't invite you." "And does that seem unreasonable to you, Michael?" A pause. "Well, I mean, they have a right to spend Christmas however they want." "Yes, they do. And I have a right to spend my money however I want." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not an ATM machine. I'm not a bank. I'm a person who deserves to be treated with respect and love, not just when someone needs a loan. Mom, that's not... We love you. Do you? When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you asked how I'm doing without wanting something? When was the last time you included me in your life because you wanted me there, not because you needed me to solve a problem? I could hear him struggling for an answer. I've been busy with work and the kids. For 5 years, Michael? You've been busy for 5 years? It's not like that. Then what is it like? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you and your sister only remember I exist when you need money. That's not true. When's my birthday, Michael? What? My birthday. When is it? Silence. It was 3 months ago, October 15th. Neither of you called. Neither of you sent a card. But Jessica called 2 weeks later asking for money for Emma's sorority dues. More silence. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't realize. That's the problem. You don't realize. You don't see me as a person anymore. You see me as a resource to be tapped when convenient and ignored otherwise. What can we do to fix this? For a moment, my heart softened. Maybe he really wanted to understand. Maybe they both did. Maybe this was just a terrible misunderstanding that could be repaired with honest conversation and good intentions. Then I remembered Christmas morning. I remembered sitting alone in my apartment while my children celebrated with other people's families. I remembered the text messages asking for money, the calls that only came when they needed something, the birthdays forgotten, and the holidays I'd been excluded from. I don't know if it can be fixed, I said quietly. But I know it can't be fixed with apologies and promises. It would have to be fixed with actions, with respect, with actually treating me like someone you love instead of someone you use. Mom, I need some time to think, Michael. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not just giving everything away. I hung up on him too. That night, I sat in my chair by the window and cried. Not from sadness this time, but from relief. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I'd told the truth about how I felt. I'd stopped protecting other people from the consequences of their behavior. I'd stopped pretending that being used was the same thing as being loved. The lottery ticket was still in my safety deposit box, still waiting to be claimed. I had 30 more days to decide what to do with it, how to structure my new life, how to use this incredible gift I'd been given. But first, I had to figure out who Eleanor Davies was when she wasn't being someone else's solution to their problems. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 40 years. I called in sick to my part-time job at the law firm. I wasn't actually sick, but I needed a day to think, to plan, to imagine what my life might look like going forward. I walked through Central Park in the February cold, watching joggers and dog walkers and parents pushing strollers. All these people living their lives, pursuing their happiness, making choices based on what they wanted instead of what other people needed from them. When had I stopped being like that? When had I become someone who only existed in relation to other people's needs? I'd been raised to be selfless. My own mother had drummed into me that good women sacrificed for their families, that mothers gave everything to their children, that love meant never saying no when someone needed help. I'd internalized those lessons so completely that I'd forgotten I was a person with my own wants and needs and dreams. But I was 72 years old, and I had just won more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. If I wasn't going to be selfish now, when would I ever be? That afternoon, I made an appointment with a travel agent. I'd never traveled anywhere except family vacations to the Jersey Shore and one trip to Florida when Robert retired. But I'd always dreamed of seeing Europe, of walking through art museums and historic cities, of eating pastries in Paris cafes and watching sunsets over the Mediterranean. Where would you like to go? The travel agent asked. Everywhere, I said, and then laughed at myself. I want to see everything I should have seen decades ago. We planned a month-long trip to Italy, France, and Spain. First-class flights, luxury hotels, private tours. The kind of trip I'd never imagined I could afford. The kind of experience I'd never thought I deserved. The total cost was more than I'd made in 2 years at my old jobs. I put it on my new American Express Black Card without a second thought. 3 weeks after my conversations with Jessica and Michael, they both showed up at my apartment. I wasn't expecting them, and for a moment when I opened the door, I felt like the old Eleanor, nervous, eager to please, ready to apologize for setting boundaries. But then I remembered who I was now, what I was worth, what I would and wouldn't accept. We need to talk, Jessica said, pushing past me into the apartment. She stopped short when she saw the changes. New furniture, fresh paint, expensive-looking decorations. Mom, what's all this? Michael asked, looking around. I redecorated, I said simply. With what money? Jessica demanded. Last time we talked, you said you couldn't afford to help with Derek's car. I found some money I'd forgotten about. It wasn't technically a lie. They exchanged glances. I could see them trying to figure out what was happening. where this new version of their mother had come from. "Look, Mom," Michael said, settling into my new armchair without asking. "We've been talking, and we think maybe you're going through something, like a midlife crisis or something. Sometimes older people—" "Older people what?" I interrupted. "Sometimes they get confused about relationships. They imagine slights that aren't really there. They get paranoid about money." I stared at him. My own son was gaslighting me, trying to convince me that my hurt feelings were symptoms of mental decline rather than reasonable responses to years of mistreatment. "I'm not confused, Michael. I'm clear-headed for the first time in years." "Clear-headed about what?" Jessica asked, settling onto my new sofa. "About refusing to help family when they need it? About hanging up on people who love you? Clear-headed about the difference between being loved and being used." "Oh my God, Mom, we're not using you," Jessica said, rolling her eyes. "We're your children. Helping your children isn't being used, it's being a mom." "And what about being a daughter?" I asked quietly. "What are the responsibilities that come with that?" They looked at each other again, clearly frustrated. "We call you," Michael said, "when you need money. We include you in things. When it's convenient for you. We love you," Jessica said, her voice getting louder. "Then show me." "How? How are we supposed to show you?" "We can't read your mind, Mom. If you want something specific, you need to tell us." I sat down across from them, these two people I'd devoted my life to raising, and felt like I was looking at strangers. "I want to matter when you don't need anything from me," I said. "I want to be invited to Christmas dinner even when it's inconvenient. I want you to call me on my birthday. I want you to ask about my life and actually listen to the answer. I want to be treated like someone you love instead of someone you tolerate." "That's not fair," Jessica said. "You're making us sound terrible." "I'm not making you sound like anything. I'm describing how I've been treated." "And you're describing it wrong," Michael said, his voice getting angry now. "You're twisting everything to make yourself the victim." The victim. That word hung in the air between us like a challenge. "Maybe I am the victim," I said quietly. "Maybe I've been victimizing myself for years by accepting less than I deserve from the people I love most." "Less than you deserve?" Jessica stood up, her face flushed. "Mom, we're not perfect. We're busy. We have our own lives and our own problems. We can't spend every minute making sure you feel special." "I don't want every minute. I want some minutes. I want to matter enough that you think about me when you're making plans. I want to matter enough that you remember my birthday. I want to matter enough that Christmas dinner includes a chair for me." "Derek's kids were sick," she shouted. "Then you find another solution. You postpone dinner, or you change the location, or you ask Derek to handle his sick children while you have Christmas with your mother. You don't just exclude me and expect me to be grateful for the explanation. We're not going to rearrange our entire lives around your feelings, Mom." The words hit me like cold water. Clear, brutal honesty at last. "Then we don't have anything else to talk about," I said, standing up. "What does that mean?" Michael asked. "It means I'm not going to keep begging for crumbs of attention from people who consider my feelings an inconvenience." "So what, you're cutting us off?" Jessica's voice was incredulous, like the idea that I might have limits was impossible to process. "I'm protecting myself from people who hurt me." "We're your children. Yes, you are, and I love you. But I'm also a person, and I deserve to be treated like one." They both stared at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. "This is insane," Jessica muttered. "This is boundaries," I corrected. They left angry, slamming my apartment door behind them. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with text messages from Jessica's husband, Paul, from Michael's wife, Sarah, from various family friends who'd apparently been recruited to talk sense into me. I turned off my phone and sat in my quiet apartment, surrounded by beautiful new things I'd bought with money my children didn't know I had. I felt lonely, but not empty. Sad, but not broken. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing my own peace over other people's convenience. The next morning, I went to the lottery office and formally claimed my prize. The paperwork took hours, but when it was done, $137 million after taxes was transferred to accounts my financial advisor had set up. $137 million. I was officially one of the wealthiest people in New York State, and my children had no idea. That afternoon, I got a call from Derek. Jessica's boyfriend had never called me before, had barely spoken to me in the 8 months he'd been dating my daughter. "Mrs. Davies? This is Derek." "Hello, Derek. Listen, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Jessica's really upset about your argument yesterday." "I'm sorry she's upset. She says you're mad about Christmas, but I want you to know that wasn't personal. My kids really were sick, and we just thought—" "Derek, can I ask you something?" "Sure. In the 8 months you've been with my daughter, how many times have you made an effort to include me in your plans?" Silence. How many times have you suggested that Jessica invite me to dinner or to a movie or to any activity at all? More silence. How many conversations have you and I had that weren't about money I could provide or problems I could solve? I mean, we've talked. No, we haven't. You've been polite when necessary and absent otherwise. Which is your right, Derek. You don't owe me anything. But don't pretend that excluding me from Christmas was about your children being sick. It was about me not being important enough to accommodate. That's not. He trailed off. Derek, I want Jessica to be happy. If you make her happy, then I'm glad she found you. But don't call me pretending that my hurt feelings about being excluded are a misunderstanding. They're a reasonable response to being treated as disposable by people I love. I hung up before he could respond. Over the next few days, the calls and texts from family members intensified. Everyone had opinions about my new attitude, my unreasonable expectations, my selfish behavior. I was being too sensitive, too demanding, too difficult. No one asked if I was okay. No one wondered what had led to this change in my behavior. No one seemed curious about what it might feel like to be 72 years old and realize that your own children only valued you for what you could provide. The only person who expressed any understanding was Carmen Ramirez. You know, Eleanor, she said as we sat in her kitchen sharing coffee one afternoon. When my husband died, I learned something important. People will treat you exactly as badly as you let them. It feels so selfish, though, I said. Setting boundaries, saying no to your own children. It's only selfish if you're doing it to hurt them. Are you trying to hurt them? No, I'm trying to protect myself. Then it's not selfish. It's necessary. Your children haven't been treating you like a mother. They've been treating you like a resource. And resources get depleted. She was right. I had been depleted. Years of giving and giving and giving had left me empty, forgotten, disposable. But now I had power. Real power. The kind that comes with having more money than you could spend in several lifetimes. The question was, what was I going to do with it? 2 weeks later, I got the call I'd been expecting. Mom? Jessica's voice was different this time. Smaller. Scared. I need to talk to you about something important. What is it? Derek proposed. I felt a stab of something. Hurt that she was sharing this with me now, when we were barely speaking. Joy that my daughter was happy. Suspicion about the timing. Congratulations, I said carefully. Thanks. Listen, we want to have the wedding this summer and, well, weddings are expensive. We were hoping, we know you're not happy with us right now, but this is important. This is your daughter's wedding. There it was. The reason for the call, the reason for sharing her happy news with the mother she'd been describing as unreasonable and difficult. She needed money. How much? I asked. Well, we found this venue in the Hamptons, and with catering and flowers and everything, maybe $40,000? $40,000. For one day. More than I'd made in 2 years at my old jobs. Jessica, I said slowly, when Derek proposed, what was the first thing you thought about after you said yes? What do you mean? The very first thing. Was it how happy you were? How much you love him? How excited you were to plan a life together? Of course I was happy. Or was it how you were going to pay for a wedding? Silence. Because if the first thing you thought about was money, and the first person you called was me, then this isn't about sharing your joy. This is about solving your problem. Mom, please. This is my wedding. I want it to be special. I want it to be special too. I want it to be about love and commitment and building a life with someone who makes you happy. It is about that. Then why are we talking about money instead of talking about Derek? Why haven't you asked me to help you plan, to go dress shopping, to be part of the experience? Why is the only role you've imagined for me the one where I write checks? That's not... She was crying now. Mom, why are you being like this? I need your help. I've been helping you your entire life, Jessica. I helped you through college, through your divorce, through every financial crisis you've had for 20 years. And what I got in return was being excluded from Christmas because including me was inconvenient. I said I was sorry about that. No, actually you didn't. You explained it. You justified it. You made excuses for it. But you never actually said you were sorry. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry about Christmas. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. Now will you help with the wedding? An apology designed to get what she wanted, not because she understood what she'd done wrong. Jessica, let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer. If I couldn't help you financially, if I had no money at all, would you still want me involved in your wedding planning? Of course I would. You're my mother. Then involve me. Ask me to go dress shopping with you. Ask me to help you interview caterers. Ask me to be part of the planning process. Treat me like a mother instead of like a bank. But what about the money? What about it? How are we supposed to pay for everything? The same way most people do. You save money, you set a budget you can afford, you figure out what's most important and what you can live without. You act like adults planning a wedding instead of children expecting someone else to pay for your party. $40,000 isn't that much for a wedding, Mom. It's pretty standard. It's more than I made in 2 years, Jessica. That's different. How is it different? Because it's an investment in my future, in my happiness. And what about your relationship with your mother? Is that an investment worth making? I could hear her breathing, could picture her face as she struggled to understand what I was asking. I don't know what you want from me, she said finally. I want you to want me around when you don't need money from me. I want you to call me just to talk. I want you to include me in your life because you love me, not because you need me to solve problems. I do love you. Then show me. Not with words, Jessica. With actions. With choices. With how you treat me when I'm not useful to you. This is too complicated, she said, her voice getting frustrated again. I just wanted your help with my wedding. And I just want to be treated like a person instead of an ATM machine. Fine. Forget it. We'll figure it out ourselves. She hung up. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by luxury I could now afford, holding a phone that had just carried the sound of my daughter giving up on me rather than treating me with respect. But for the first time, her rejection didn't feel like a verdict on my worth. It felt like information about hers. That night, I called my lawyer, Patricia Chen. I want to set up a trust, I told her. What kind of trust? Something that will provide for my children and grandchildren, but only under certain conditions. What kind of conditions? I don't know yet, but I want them to earn it. I want them to prove that they're capable of treating me with respect before they get access to my money. That's unusual. Most parents want to provide for their children unconditionally. I've been providing for them unconditionally for 20 years. It hasn't made them better people. Maybe some conditions would help. We spent an hour discussing possibilities. The trust could be structured to provide income only after certain benchmarks were met. Sustained, respectful communication, consistent inclusion in family activities, demonstrated appreciation rather than entitlement. It's your money, Eleanor, Patricia said finally. You can structure it however you want. But I will say this. People don't usually change just because money is involved. If your children don't respect you now, they may not respect you even if you make inheritance conditional on respect. Then they won't inherit, I said calmly. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with not rewarding people for treating me badly, even if they're my children. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed calls and text messages. Something had happened overnight. Something that had set off a family emergency involving everyone trying to reach me at once. The local news website had run a story about New York's latest lottery winner, an unnamed 72-year-old woman from the Upper West Side who had claimed a $300 million jackpot. They couldn't release my name due to privacy laws, but the details were specific enough that anyone who knew me well might make the connection. My phone rang. Jessica. Mom, did you see the news about the lottery winner? I saw it. It's so crazy. They're saying it's a 72-year-old woman from our neighborhood. Can you imagine? Some old lady is now richer than most celebrities, and she's probably living right here on the Upper West Side. I mean, what are the odds? Derek thinks maybe we should buy more lottery tickets. If someone around here won, maybe the store is lucky or something. Maybe. Although honestly, I can't imagine what some old lady would do with that much money. I hope she's smart about it, doesn't let people take advantage of her. The irony was so thick I almost choked on it. Jessica, can I ask you something? Sure. If you found out that someone in your family had won that much money, what would your first thought be? What do you mean? Just hypothetically. If someone you knew, someone in your family, suddenly had access to hundreds of millions of dollars, what would be your immediate reaction? She laughed. I'd probably think about how they could help family, you know? Like, if it was Aunt Ruth or someone, I'd hope she'd remember that family takes care of family. I mean, what's the point of having that much money if you're not going to share it with people you love? What if the person who won felt like people they loved had been taking advantage of them financially for years? Well, that would be different. But family isn't taking advantage. Family is family. When you love someone, you help them when you can. And when you can't help? What do you mean? What if you love someone but you can't help them anymore? Financially, I mean. What happens to the relationship then? Love isn't about money, right? You love people for who they are, not for what they can give you. Love isn't about money. You love people for who they are, not for what they can give you. I almost repeated her words back to her, almost asked her to think about what she'd just said in the context of our relationship. But she wouldn't see the connection. She couldn't see past her own need to my humanity. That's a nice way to think about it, I said instead. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine if that lottery winner has family members who just see her as a piggy bank now? That would be awful. I hope she has people around her who loved her before she was rich and will love her just the same. I hope so too. After she hung up, I sat in my expensive apartment wearing my expensive clothes, holding my expensive phone, and laughed until I cried. My daughter had just perfectly described the relationship I wanted with my family, one where I was loved for who I was, not for what I could provide. She'd just expressed sympathy for lottery winners whose families might see them as piggy banks rather than people, and she had no idea she was talking about herself, about us, about the exact dynamic that had led to this moment. That afternoon, I made a decision. I called Patricia Chen and told her to move forward with setting up the trust, but with a twist. The money would be available to my children and grandchildren, but only after a year of demonstrating genuine relationship with me. Regular calls that weren't about money, inclusion in family activities, recognition of my birthday and other important dates, basic respect, and courtesy. And if they don't meet the conditions? Patricia asked. Then the money goes to charity, many charities, organizations that help elderly people who've been abandoned by their families. Eleanor, are you sure about this? This is a very significant decision. Patricia, for 20 years, I've given my children everything they asked for and received nothing in return except requests for more. They have 1 year to prove that they're capable of treating me like a human being instead of a resource. If they can't manage that, then they don't deserve my fortune any more than they deserved my savings. And what will you do during this year? I'm going to live my life. I'm going to travel, try new things, make new friends, discover who Eleanor Davies is when she's not just giving everything away. That sounds wonderful. It does, doesn't it? The next week, I left for Italy. First-class seat on a direct flight to Rome. A month-long tour of art museums and historic sites and beautiful countryside I dreamed of seeing for decades. I called Carmen Ramirez before I left. I'm going away for a while, I told her. Vacation? Something like that. A journey of self-discovery, I guess you could say. Good for you, Eleanor. You deserve to see the world. Will you keep an eye on my apartment? I've paid the rent 6 months in advance, and I have someone coming to water the plants, but... Of course. Where are you going? Everywhere I should have gone years ago. How long will you be gone? As long as it takes. In Rome, I stood in the Sistine Chapel and cried at the beauty of Michelangelo's ceiling. In Florence, I spent an entire afternoon in the Uffizi Gallery, studying paintings I'd only seen in books. In Venice, I rode gondolas through canals and ate gelato and watched the sunset paint the water gold. I called Jessica and Michael from each city, sharing photos and stories of my travels. They were polite but distracted, clearly wondering how I could afford such an extravagant trip. I didn't explain. In Tuscany, I stayed at a villa in the countryside and took cooking classes from an Italian grandmother who reminded me of myself, generous, nurturing, but with clear boundaries about what she would and wouldn't accept from her family. Familia è importante, she said as we made fresh pasta. But you cannot give your soul away, even for familia. Family is important, but you cannot give your soul away, even for family. I thought about that every day for the rest of my trip. From Italy, I went to France. Paris in spring was everything I'd imagined. Sidewalk cafes and flower markets and art galleries filled with treasures. I bought beautiful clothes and ate expensive meals and stayed in hotels that made me feel like royalty. In Spain, I walked the Camino de Santiago, a pilgrimage route I'd read about but never imagined I'd be able to experience. For 10 days, I walked through countryside and small villages, carrying only what I needed, thinking about forgiveness and redemption and what it meant to start over at 72. Other pilgrims asked why I was walking the Camino. I'm learning who I am, I told them. And who are you? A young German woman asked me one evening as we shared dinner at an albergue. I'm still finding out. When I returned to New York after 6 weeks of travel, my apartment felt like a museum to my old life. The photos on the shelves were of people who barely contacted me unless they needed something. The furniture was comfortable but not beautiful. The walls were bare except for generic prints I'd chosen because they were cheap, not because they brought me joy. I spent the summer redecorating completely. I hired an interior designer and bought art I loved, furniture that felt luxurious, window treatments that made the natural light sing. I turned my cramped studio into a space worthy of the woman I was becoming. Jessica called in July. Mom, Derek and I have been talking and we've decided to postpone the wedding until next year. Plan something smaller, more intimate. I knew what this meant. They couldn't afford the wedding they'd wanted without my help, and they'd rather wait than admit they needed to scale back their expectations. That sounds lovely, I said. More intimate can be more meaningful. Yeah, we think so too. A pause. How was your trip? You never really told us how you could afford to travel for so long. I had some money saved. Mom, that trip must have cost... first-class flights and luxury hotels for 6 weeks? That's like $50,000. Something like that. Where did you get $50,000? Does it matter? Well, I mean, if you have that kind of money just sitting around, why couldn't you help with the wedding? And there it was. The real question. Not concern about my financial health, not curiosity about how I'd managed to fulfill a lifelong dream of traveling, just resentment that I'd spent money on myself instead of giving it to her. Jessica, do you hear yourself right now? What do you mean? Do you hear how your voice changes when you talk about my money versus our relationship? Do you notice that you sound more upset about me spending money on myself than you do about the fact that we haven't had a real conversation in months? I just don't understand where this money came from all of a sudden. And if you understood where it came from, what would you do with that information? Nothing. I'd understand the situation better. The situation? You know what I mean. No, I don't. Explain it to me. I mean, if you have money to spend on expensive trips, then obviously our relationship problems aren't about money. You're just choosing not to help family. I closed my eyes and leaned back in my beautiful new armchair. Jessica, what if I told you that our relationship problems were never about money? What if I told you that I would gladly spend $50,000 celebrating your wedding with you, but only if you actually wanted me there as your mother instead of just as your check writer? I do want you there as my mother. Then why is every conversation we have about money? It's not every conversation. Name the last conversation we had that wasn't about money or something you needed from me. Silence. Jessica? We talk about other things. When? Name one time in the last 6 months when you called just to ask how I was doing or to share something exciting about your life or to include me in an activity that had nothing to do with what I could provide. More silence. This is ridiculous, Mom. You're making everything about money when it's not about money. You're right. It's not about money. It's about respect. It's about being treated like a person instead of like a resource. It's about being valued for who I am instead of just for what I can give. We do value you. Show me. How? Figure it out, Jessica. I've spent 20 years showing you how much I value you. I've sacrificed and given and supported and loved and provided for you in every way I could think of. Now it's your turn to show me what I mean to you when you don't need anything from me. She hung up without saying goodbye. August came and went without a word from either of my children. My birthday in October came and went the same way. No calls, no cards, no acknowledgement that the woman who'd given them life had lived another year. Carmen Ramirez brought me a homemade cake and we celebrated quietly in my transformed apartment. How are you doing with all this? She asked as we shared wine and dessert. Better than I expected, I said honestly. I thought I'd be lonelier, but I'm not lonely. I'm peaceful. What's the difference? Lonely is when you want company but don't have it. Peaceful is when you're comfortable with yourself whether you have company or not. And which are you? Peaceful. For the first time in my adult life, I'm genuinely at peace with who I am. November brought the first snow of winter and a familiar heaviness as the holidays approached. This would be my second Christmas since winning the lottery, my second Christmas since setting boundaries with my children. I wondered if they'd reach out this year, if they'd learned anything from the past year of silence, if they missed me as much as I missed them. The answer came on December 20th. A call from Jessica. Mom? It's me. Hi, honey. Listen, I know things have been weird between us this year, but it's Christmas, and Christmas is about family, and I don't want to spend another holiday wondering if you're okay. My heart softened slightly. Maybe she did miss me. Maybe the year of silence had helped her understand what she'd lost. I was wondering if you'd like to come to Christmas dinner this year. Derek and I are hosting at our place, and his kids will be there, and I just thought, maybe we could start fresh. That sounds lovely, I said carefully. What made you decide to include me this year? Well, honestly, Derek's mom can't make it this year, so we have room. Derek's mom can't make it, so we have room. I was a replacement guest, a backup plan, someone to fill an empty chair because their first choice wasn't available. I see, I said quietly. So will you come? Christmas Day around 2? Jessica, can I ask you something? Sure. If Derek's mother could have made it, would you still have invited me? What kind of question is that? An honest one. Mom, you're my mother. Of course I'd want you there. But you didn't want me there last year when Derek's kids were sick. You didn't want me there when it was inconvenient or complicated. You only want me there now when there's an empty chair to fill. That's not... You're twisting this. I'm trying to include you. You're trying to fill a chair. There's a difference. Fine. Forget it. I tried to make things right, and you're just going to be difficult about it. Jessica, making things right wouldn't be inviting me to fill someone else's space. Making things right would be acknowledging that excluding me was hurtful and wrong. Making things right would be genuinely wanting me there, not just needing someone to round out the numbers. Whatever, Mom. I don't have time for this drama. She hung up. I spent Christmas Day alone again, but this time it felt like a choice rather than an abandonment. I made myself a beautiful dinner, opened a bottle of expensive wine, and watched old movies while snow fell outside my windows. At 8 p.m., my phone rang. Michael. Mom, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Jessica told me she invited you to dinner, and you said no. That's not exactly what happened. She said you were upset about something and declined to come. Did she tell you why she invited me? Because it's Christmas and your family. Did she tell you that she invited me because Derek's mother couldn't make it and they had an empty chair? Silence. Michael, I'm sure that's not why she invited you. Call her and ask. Mom, does it matter why you were invited? The point is that you were invited. Yes, it matters. It matters whether I'm wanted or whether I'm just convenient. It matters whether I'm included because you love me or because you need to fill space. You're reading too much into this. Am I? In the past year, how many times have you called me just to talk? How many times have you included me in family activities? How many times have you treated me like someone you love instead of someone you use? That's not fair. It's not about fair, Michael. It's about reality. It's about acknowledging that the only time either of you contact me is when you need something or when it's convenient for you. So what do you want from us? I want you to want me in your life. Not just when you need me, not just when it's convenient, but because you genuinely value having me around. We do value you. Then show me. Don't tell me. Show me. He hung up too. I sat in my quiet apartment, surrounded by beauty I'd created for myself, wearing clothes that made me feel elegant, drinking wine that tasted like celebration. I thought about my children spending Christmas together, probably complaining about their difficult mother, who had unreasonable expectations and hurt feelings that made no sense. And I realized I didn't care what they thought anymore. For 72 years, I'd measured my worth by other people's opinions of me. I'd twisted myself into shapes that made other people comfortable. Even when those shapes hurt me, I'd given and given and given, hoping that generosity would earn me love, acceptance, inclusion. But love that has to be purchased isn't love at all. It's just a transaction. And I was done with transactions. January brought a call from Patricia Chen. Eleanor, it's been a year since we set up the trust. Have you decided how you want to proceed? A year. Jessica and Michael had had 12 months to demonstrate that they could treat me with respect, include me in their lives, acknowledge my humanity beyond my usefulness. They'd failed completely. I want to proceed with the charitable distributions, I said. All of it? Most of it. I want to set aside enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life, and I want to establish a small fund that will provide modest inheritances for my grandchildren when they turn 30. Not enough to make them rich, but enough to help them start adult lives without debt. And your children get nothing? My children get exactly what they've given me this year. Nothing. Eleanor, are you absolutely sure about this? This is an irrevocable decision. Patricia, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. We spent 2 hours working out the details. $100 million would go to charities that supported elderly people who'd been abandoned by their families. $10 million would go to organizations that provided financial literacy and counseling to families in crisis. $5 million would go to scholarship funds for first-generation college students who couldn't rely on family support. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was giving away a fortune to help other people in situations my own family had put me in. When do you want to make this public? Patricia asked. I don't want it to be public. I want the distributions to be anonymous. What about your family? When will you tell them? I won't. They had a year to treat me like I mattered. They chose not to. They don't get to know what they missed. Don't you think they deserve to know? Patricia, for 20 years, I gave my children everything I had. Money, time, energy, love, forgiveness, second chances. They took all of it and still treated me like I was disposable. They don't deserve an explanation for why I'm not giving them more. What if they change? What if they realize what they've lost and try to repair the relationship? Then I'll know they're capable of change, and that will be worth more to me than any amount of money. But the money will be gone either way. They had their chance to earn it, and they chose not to. The paperwork took 3 weeks to complete. When it was done, I was still wealthy beyond most people's dreams, but I was no longer wealthy enough to solve all of my family's financial problems forever. I was free. Spring came early that year. By March, my apartment was filled with plants and flowers, and I'd started taking art classes at a community center near Columbia University. I'd made friends with other women my age who were also learning to prioritize their own happiness, and I'd begun volunteering at a literacy program for elderly immigrants. Carmen Ramirez noticed the changes in me immediately. You look younger, she said one morning as we shared coffee in my sunlit kitchen. I feel younger. I feel like I'm finally living my own life instead of just serving other people's needs. Any word from your children? Not since Christmas. I think they've given up on me. Do you miss them? I miss who I thought they were. I miss the relationship I thought we had. But I don't miss the way they actually treated me. That's very wise. It's very hard-won wisdom. I wish I'd learned it decades ago. April brought an unexpected call. Emma, Jessica's daughter, now 24 and fresh out of art school. Grandma Eleanor, it's Emma. Emma, honey, how are you? I'm okay. I wanted to call because I miss you. I know there's been some kind of fight between you and Mom, but I don't really understand what happened, and I miss hearing from you. My heart ached. Emma was the one member of my family who had never asked me for money, who had always seemed genuinely happy to see me. I miss you too, sweetheart. Would you maybe want to get coffee sometime? I know things are weird with the family, but you're my grandmother and I love you, and I don't want some stupid argument to keep us from having a relationship. Emma, it wasn't a stupid argument. I know, I don't know what it was about exactly, but I know it matters to you, so it's not stupid. I just meant, I don't want their problems to be our problems, you know? Smart girl. Emotionally intelligent in ways her mother had never been. I would love to get coffee with you. We met that Saturday at a little cafe in the village. Emma looked so much like Jessica had at that age. But there was something different about her. A gentleness, an awareness of other people's feelings that her mother had never developed. Grandma, can I ask you something? Of course. What happened between you and Mom? She says you've become really difficult and unreasonable, but that doesn't sound like you. I thought carefully about how to answer. I didn't want to poison Emma's relationship with her mother, but I also didn't want to lie. Emma, how would you feel if the only time your friends contacted you was when they needed something from you? I'd feel pretty used. And how would you feel if they excluded you from important events but then got angry when you couldn't help them financially? I'd feel like they didn't really care about me as a person. That's what happened between your mother and me. For years, the only time she contacted me was when she needed money. When I finally said I couldn't provide what she wanted, she cut me out of family events. When I asked to be treated with respect, she told me I was being unreasonable. Emma was quiet for a long moment. That sucks, Grandma. I'm sorry. Thank you, honey. It does suck. But I'm learning that I can't control how other people treat me. I can only control how I respond to it. Is that why you've been traveling and taking classes and stuff? Mom said you've been acting really different this year. I've been learning how to live my own life instead of just serving other people's needs. It's something I should have learned a long time ago. I think it's cool. You seem happier. I am happier. Are you okay with your mom being upset about our relationship? Emma shrugged. Mom gets upset about a lot of things. But you're my grandmother, and I love you, and I'm not going to let her control who I have relationships with. I'm an adult. We spent 2 hours talking about her art, her job at a small gallery, her boyfriend who sounded kind and supportive. She asked about my travels, my art classes, my new life. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask me to fix her relationship with her mother. She just wanted to spend time with me. It was the most purely enjoyable conversation I'd had with a family member in years. When we were getting ready to leave, Emma hugged me tight. I love you, Grandma, and I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Thank you, sweetheart. That means more to me than you know. Can we do this again? Regular coffee dates, just you and me? I would love that. Walking home through Washington Square Park, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Uncomplicated joy about a family relationship. Emma loved me for who I was, not for what I could provide. She valued my company, respected my choices, and treated me like a person worthy of care and attention. It reminded me that love was possible, real love, the kind that didn't require constant payment. Summer brought another unexpected development. Michael called in July, and for the first time in years, he didn't sound like he was calling because he needed something. Mom, I've been thinking about our conversation at Christmas, and I think maybe you were right about some things. Which things? About how we've been treating you. Sarah and I have been talking, and she pointed out that we really don't call you unless we need something. And that's not fair to you. No, it's not. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for taking you for granted and for not making more effort to include you in our lives. An apology that didn't come with a request for money. That was new. Thank you, Michael. That means a lot to me. Would you maybe want to come visit us in LA sometime? Not for any special occasion or anything, just to visit. Sarah wants to get to know you better, and the boys are old enough now to appreciate having their grandmother around. I'd like that. Really? Really? But Michael, I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I'm not going to go back to being the family bank. I'm not going to say yes to every request or solve every problem. I'm going to be part of your family as Eleanor, as a person with my own needs and boundaries, not just as Mom the giver. I understand. Actually, I think that's probably healthier for all of us. Good. I visited them in August. It was tentative at first, all of us learning how to relate to each other differently. But Sarah was genuinely interested in getting to know me, and the twins were delightful 10-year-olds who seemed to enjoy having a grandmother who asked about their interests and listened to their stories. Michael and I had several long conversations about the past, about mistakes we'd both made, about how to build a better relationship going forward. He didn't ask me for money. He didn't expect me to solve his problems. He treated me like a guest he was happy to have in his home. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a son again. Jessica, meanwhile, remained radio silent. Emma told me that her mother was angry about our coffee dates, felt betrayed that her own daughter was taking my side in the family conflict. She said I have to choose between you and her, Emma told me one afternoon as we walked through the Met's sculpture garden. And what did you say? I told her that was ridiculous. I told her that adults don't make their children choose sides in conflicts that have nothing to do with them. I told her I love you both, but I'm not going to be manipulated into cutting off my relationship with my grandmother just because she's mad at you. How did she take that? Not well. But Grandma, I meant what I said. I'm not choosing sides, but I'm also not giving up my relationship with you just to make her feel better about her choices. Emma was turning out to be the wisest person in our family. In October, on my 73rd birthday, I woke up to phone calls from Michael and Emma, cards from friends I'd made in my art classes, flowers from Carmen Ramirez, and a bottle of champagne from Patricia Chen with a note that said, "Happy birthday to the bravest client I know." No call from Jessica. But for the first time in years, I wasn't devastated by her silence. I wasn't measuring the success of my birthday by who remembered it or who forgot it. I was simply grateful for the people who did choose to celebrate with me, who did make an effort to make me feel loved and valued. At dinner that night, a lovely meal at a restaurant I'd always wanted to try, Carmen asked me the question I'd been wondering about myself. Do you regret it? Giving away the money instead of using it to try to fix things with your children? I thought about it carefully. No, I said finally. The money couldn't fix what was wrong between us. Jessica doesn't respect me because I'm poor. She disrespected me when she thought I was poor. Giving her millions of dollars wouldn't have taught her to value me as a person. It would have just made the relationship more expensive. And you're happy with your choice? I'm at peace with my choice. I used my good fortune to help other people who are in situations I understand. I kept enough to live comfortably and independently. And most importantly, I learned the difference between being loved and being useful. Which is, love doesn't come with conditions or expectations. Love doesn't require payment. Love doesn't disappear when you can't provide what someone wants from you. And do you feel loved now? I looked around the restaurant, thinking about Emma's weekly calls, Michael's genuine efforts to rebuild our relationship, my new friends from art class, Carmen's steady support, even Patricia Chen's professional care that had grown into real affection. Yes, I said. I feel loved. Not by everyone I wish would love me, but by people who choose to love me for who I am, not for what I can give them. December brought snow and Christmas decorations, and another holiday season that I would spend without Jessica. But this year, Michael invited me to spend Christmas with his family in Los Angeles, and Emma planned to fly out from New York to join us. Christmas morning found me sitting around a tree with people who were genuinely happy to have me there, exchanging gifts that had been chosen with thought and care, sharing stories and laughter that felt real and unforced. Michael gave me a photo album he'd made of our family over the years, with new pictures from my recent visit. Sarah gave me art supplies and an easel so I could paint in their guest room during future visits. The twins gave me drawings they'd made of our family, the new version, with me included not as peripheral figure but as central grandmother. Emma gave me a necklace she'd made in her jewelry-making class, a delicate silver piece with a small charm that read, "Fierce." "Because you are," she said when I asked about it. "You're fierce, Grandma. Fierce about knowing your worth and not settling for less than you deserve." I wore that necklace every day. The strangest part about Christmas that year was how natural it felt, how easy it was to enjoy the celebration, without the underlying tension I'd grown used to over the years. The constant awareness that I was valued primarily for what I could provide. These people wanted me there. They included me in conversations, asked my opinion, laughed at my stories, treated me like someone who mattered. It was what Christmas was supposed to feel like. Flying back to New York after New Year's, I thought about the woman I'd been 2 years earlier. The woman who spent Christmas alone, devastated by her daughter's rejection, measuring her worth by other people's need for her. That woman felt like a stranger to me now. I'd learned something revolutionary over the past 2 years. I was worth more than what I could give away. I was interesting and funny and wise and capable of forming meaningful relationships that weren't based on financial transactions. I was worthy of love that didn't come with a price tag. Most importantly, I'd learned that I could survive, and even thrive, without the approval of people who refused to treat me with respect, even when those people were my own children. February brought a surprise. A call from Derek. Mrs. Davies? It's Derek. Jessica's fiancé. Hello, Derek. I was wondering if I could talk to you about something. Go ahead. Jessica doesn't know I'm calling you. She'd probably be pretty mad if she found out. But I've been watching this situation between you two, and I think maybe I understand what you've been trying to tell her. Oh? The thing is, Mrs. Davies, I've been with Jessica for 2 years now, and in all that time, I don't think I've ever heard her talk about you as a person. She talks about you as a resource, as someone who can solve problems or provide things, but never as just her mom, you know? This was not what I'd expected to hear from Derek. I see. And I've been thinking about how that must feel for you. Having your own daughter only call when she needs something, only include you when it's convenient. That's gotta hurt. It does hurt. Yeah, I can imagine. The thing is, I grew up in foster care. I never had a mom who gave a damn about me, who sacrificed for me, who was there when I needed her. And watching Jessica treat you like you're disposable, it makes me angry, honestly, because I know what it's like to not have a mom at all, and she has one who loves her, and she's just throwing that away. I was quiet for a moment, stunned by this unexpected insight from someone I'd dismissed as selfish and manipulative. Derek, can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you calling me? What do you want to come of this conversation? Honestly, I want Jessica to wake up and realize what she's losing. I want her to understand that you're not being unreasonable or difficult. You're just asking to be treated like a human being instead of like an ATM machine. And have you told Jessica this? I've tried. But she gets defensive and says I don't understand family dynamics, that you're being manipulative and using money to control her. And what do you think about that? I think she's got it backwards. I think you're the one who's been controlled. By her expectations, by her demands, by her assumption that you'll always bail her out no matter how she treats you. And I think you finally had enough. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. I figured. Mrs. Davies, can I ask you something? Of course. Is there any chance, if Jessica could see what she's been doing, if she could really understand how her behavior has affected you, is there any chance you'd be willing to try again with her? It was the question I'd been asking myself for 2 years. Derek, I would love to have a relationship with Jessica. I would love to be included in her life, to celebrate her happiness, to be her mother in all the ways that matter, but only if she wants me there as a person. Not as a solution to her problems. Only if she can treat me with the same respect she'd show to any other human being she claims to love. And if she can't do that, then she can't do it. And that will be sad, but it won't be my fault or my failure. I spent 70 years trying to earn love by giving everything away. I won't spend whatever years I have left doing the same thing. I respect that. I really do. Thank you, Mrs. Davies. For what it's worth, I think Jessica loves you. I think she just doesn't know how to show it without asking for something in return. That's possible. But Derek, love that always comes with a price tag isn't really love. It's just a transaction. And I'm done with transactions. A month later, in March, Emma called with news. Grandma, Mom, and Derek broke up. Oh no, is she okay? She's pretty upset. Apparently, Derek told her some things about how she treats people, including you, and she didn't take it well. They had a big fight, and he moved out. I'm sorry to hear that. I know she cared about him. Yeah, she did. But Grandma, I think maybe this is a good thing in the long run. I think she needed to hear some of these things even if she didn't want to. What kinds of things? That she takes people for granted. That she only contacts family when she needs something. That she treats you like a bank instead of like her mother. Derek apparently said a lot of the same things you've been trying to tell her. And how did she respond? At first, she was really angry. Said everyone was ganging up on her and being unfair. But then she started actually thinking about it. And I think she's starting to realize that maybe she hasn't been the daughter she thought she was. Has she said anything about me? She asked me to ask you something. What? She wants to know if it's too late. If she's burned all her bridges with you, or if there's still a chance to fix things. My heart clenched. For 2 years, I'd been waiting for some sign that Jessica understood what had gone wrong between us. That she was capable of seeing me as more than a resource to be exploited. Emma, what do you think? Do you think she's really ready to change? Or is this just because she's lonely after her breakup? Honestly, I think it's both. I think she's lonely and scared and realizing that she's pushed away everyone who really cared about her. But I also think she's finally starting to understand that the way she's been treating people, especially you, isn't okay. And what did you tell her when she asked if it was too late? I told her that was up to you. But I also told her that if she wants to fix things, she needs to figure out how to apologize for real. Not just say she's sorry so you'll go back to the way things used to be. Smart girl. Emma understood what real repair required. Can I think about this for a while? Of course, she's not going anywhere. And Grandma? Whatever you decide is okay. You don't owe her forgiveness just because she's finally ready to ask for it. That night, I sat in my apartment, my beautiful, peaceful apartment that reflected who I'd become instead of who I used to be, and thought about second chances. I thought about Jessica as a little girl, bright and loving and full of potential. I thought about the woman she'd become, entitled and demanding and unable to see past her own needs. I thought about the possibility that people could change, that relationships could heal, that families could learn new ways of being together. I also thought about protecting myself, about not returning to patterns that had hurt me, about the difference between forgiveness and doormat behavior. After a week of consideration, I called Emma. Tell your mother that if she wants to talk to me, she can call me directly, but I won't be having any conversations about money or what I can do to solve her problems. If she wants to rebuild our relationship, we'll need to start with her understanding me as a person, not as a resource. I'll tell her. And Emma, thank you for being the bridge between us. But from here on out, any communication between your mother and me needs to be direct. You shouldn't have to carry messages between two adults. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. 2 days later, my phone rang. Jessica. Mom, it's me. Hi, Jessica. I was wondering, would you be willing to meet me for coffee, just to talk? What would you like to talk about? About us. About the mistakes I've made. About whether there's any way to fix this. Are you asking to meet so you can apologize, or so you can try to convince me to go back to the way things used to be? A long pause. To apologize. Really apologize. Not just say I'm sorry so things can go back to normal, but to actually acknowledge what I did wrong and try to make it right. Then yes, I'll meet you for coffee. We met that Saturday at the same cafe where Emma and I had been having our regular dates. Jessica looked older, more uncertain than I'd seen her since she was very young. We ordered coffee and sat across from each other at a small table by the window, 2 women trying to figure out how to be mother and daughter again. Mom, I need to tell you some things, and I need you to let me get through them before you respond, okay? Okay. Derek broke up with me because he said I was selfish and entitled, and that I treated people like they existed to serve my needs. At first, I thought he was being cruel, trying to hurt me because he was leaving. But then Emma said some similar things, and I started thinking about my relationships with people, especially with you. She took a shaky breath. I realized that every conversation we've had for the past, probably 5 years, has been about something I needed from you. Money mostly, but also emotional labor, fixing problems, dealing with crises I created. I can't remember the last time I called you just to ask how you were doing or to share something good that happened to me. I stayed quiet, letting her continue. I realized that when I was planning Christmas last year, I didn't even consider inviting you until Derek's mom couldn't come. You weren't part of the original plan because I didn't think of you as someone whose company I enjoyed. I thought of you as someone who would expect all kinds of attention and appreciation, someone who would be work to have around instead of pleasure. Her eyes filled with tears. Mom, I've been treating you like a convenience store. Like somewhere I could go when I needed something, but not somewhere I'd choose to spend time just because I wanted to be there. Yes, I said quietly. That's exactly how you've been treating me. And that's horrible. That's not how you treat someone you love. That's not how you treat your mother, who gave up everything to make sure I had everything I needed. Jessica, please let me finish. I need to say this. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. I've been thinking about all the times you helped me, all the sacrifices you made, all the money you gave me over the years. And I'm not grateful for those things because I expected them. I acted like you owed me that support, like it was your job to solve my problems forever. You did act like that. I know, and I know that when you finally said no, when you finally asked to be treated with respect, I got angry at you instead of looking at my own behavior. I blamed you for being difficult instead of asking myself why my own mother felt like she had to set boundaries with me. She was crying openly now. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for taking you for granted. I'm sorry for only calling when I needed something. I'm sorry for excluding you from Christmas and then getting mad when you wouldn't pay for my wedding. I'm sorry for treating you like a bank instead of like a person. I'm sorry for being a selfish, entitled daughter who forgot that she was supposed to love you back. I sat quietly for a moment, watching my daughter cry tears that seemed genuinely remorseful, listening to an apology that acknowledged specific behaviors instead of just expressing general regret. Thank you, I said finally. Thank you for saying those things. It means more than you know to hear you acknowledge what happened between us. Is it too late, Mom? Have I ruined this permanently? That depends. On what? On whether this conversation is the beginning of you treating me differently, or just something you needed to say so you could feel better about yourself. I want to treat you differently. I want to be a better daughter. I don't know how. I've been selfish for so long, I don't know how to not be selfish. Jessica, can I tell you something? Please. You asked me once what I wanted from you, and I told you I wanted you to show me that you loved me, not just tell me. Do you remember that? Yes, that's still what I want. I want you to figure out how to be in relationship with me when you don't need anything from me. I want you to call me sometimes just to talk. I want you to include me in your life because you enjoy my company, not because you feel obligated. I want you to ask about my life and actually listen to the answers. I can do that. Can you? Because Jessica, I'm not going back to being the family bank. I'm not going back to solving all your problems and never having any of my own needs considered. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be a real relationship between two adults, not a one-way street where I give everything and you take everything. I understand. I really do. And Mom, I don't want your money anymore. I don't want you to solve my problems anymore. I want to figure out how to be an adult who can take care of herself. And I want to learn how to take care of you sometimes too. What does taking care of me look like to you? I don't know. Calling to check on you. Remembering your birthday. Including you in holiday plans because I want you there. Not because I need you to bring something. Asking about your life and your interests and your feelings. Being interested in you as a person, not just as my mom. It was everything I'd been hoping to hear for 2 years. I'd like to try that, I said. Really? Really? But Jessica, this is going to be a process. I'm not going to trust you immediately just because you apologized. You're going to have to prove that you mean what you're saying by changing how you act. I know. I'm ready to do that. And if you hurt me again, if you go back to treating me like a resource instead of a person, I won't keep giving you chances. I've learned how to live without you, and I'll do it again if I have to. I understand. I don't want to live without you, Mom. I've missed you so much this past year, and I didn't even realize how much until Derek pointed out that I'd thrown away the most important relationship in my life for stupid, selfish reasons. We talked for 2 more hours that day. About her breakup with Derek, about my travels and art classes, about Emma's job and Michael's family, about small things and big things and everything in between. It was the longest conversation we'd had in years that wasn't about something she needed from me. When we were getting ready to leave, Jessica hugged me, really hugged me. Not just the quick, perfunctory embrace she usually gave. Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being willing to try again. Thank you for being willing to grow up, I said. She laughed, a real laugh that sounded like the little girl she used to be. Can we do this again next week? Just coffee and talking? I'd like that. Over the following months, Jessica kept her word. She called me twice a week just to chat. She remembered my birthday and sent me flowers. She invited me to dinner, not because she needed something, but because she wanted my company. She asked about my art classes and my volunteer work, and listened to my answers like they mattered. It wasn't perfect. There were moments when I could see her struggling against old patterns, times when I caught her starting to ask for something before stopping herself. But she was trying, genuinely trying to be different. And slowly, carefully, I began to trust her again. By Christmas, my 3rd Christmas since winning the lottery, our relationship had healed enough that we could celebrate together without the underlying tension that used to characterize all our interactions. Jessica hosted dinner at her apartment, but this time she invited me because she wanted me there, not because someone else couldn't come. Emma was there, and Michael flew in from Los Angeles with his family. We exchanged thoughtful gifts and shared stories and laughed together like a real family, like people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. After dinner, as we were cleaning up, Jessica pulled me aside. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Are you wealthy? The question caught me off guard. Why do you ask? Because you've been living differently this year. The apartment renovations, the expensive clothes, the art classes, the travel. Emma mentioned you took her to some pretty fancy places, and you haven't seemed worried about money at all, even though you're not working full-time anymore. I looked at my daughter, trying to gauge her motives for asking. Would it change anything between us if I were? What do you mean? I mean, would finding out I had money change how you treat me? Would you start asking for financial help again? Would you start seeing me as a resource instead of as a person? She was quiet for a long moment. A year ago, I would have said no. But honestly, yeah, it probably would have changed things. I probably would have started thinking about what you could do for me instead of focusing on what I could do for you. And now? Now? I hope not. I hope I've learned enough about what really matters that I wouldn't go back to those old patterns. But Mom, I can't promise that finding out you're rich wouldn't mess with my head at least a little bit. I appreciated her honesty. Jessica, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Okay, 2 years ago, right after that Christmas when you excluded me, I won the lottery. $300 million. Her face went completely white. What? I won the lottery. I've been wealthy for 2 years, this entire time we've been rebuilding our relationship. She sat down heavily in one of her kitchen chairs. $300 million? Yes. And you didn't tell us? No. Why not? Because I wanted to know if you could love me when you thought I was poor. I wanted to know if you could treat me with respect when you didn't think I could solve your problems with money. I wanted to know if you were capable of seeing me as a person instead of as a bank account. She stared at me for a long time. And now you know? Now I know that you were capable of changing, of growing, of learning how to be in relationship with me without expecting me to fund your life. I know that you can love me for who I am, not for what I can provide. Mom, I can't. She struggled for words. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I'm telling you because I want you to understand something important. When I won that money, the first thing I thought about was how it would change our relationship, how you and Michael would finally want to spend time with me again if you knew I was rich. And then I realized that any relationship based on my money wouldn't be real. It would just be an expensive transaction. So you let us think you were poor. I let you discover who you were when you couldn't get anything from me. And Jessica, I'm proud of who you became. I'm proud of the work you've done to change yourself, to be a better daughter, to treat me like someone worthy of love and respect. She started crying again. But Mom, if you'd told us about the money, we could have been having this relationship all along. We didn't need to spend 2 years estranged from each other. Yes, we did. Because the relationship we had before wasn't real. It was built on my willingness to give you anything you asked for and your assumption that I always would. We needed those 2 years apart for both of us to learn who we really were. What happens now? Now that I know? Now, we keep being the people we've become. You keep being the daughter who calls just to talk and includes me in her life because she enjoys my company. I keep being the mother who loves you unconditionally but won't let you treat me badly. And the money? What about it? I mean, are you going to share it with us? Leave it to us? What are your plans? I looked at her carefully, watching for signs of the old Jessica, the one who would have immediately started calculating how much financial help I could provide. Jessica, how you just asked that question will determine a lot about our future relationship. She caught herself, took a deep breath. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. What I meant to ask was, I guess I don't know what I meant to ask. I'm trying not to think about your money in terms of what it means for me, but it's hard. It's a lot of money, Mom. Yes, it is. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter. Because I'm happy that you're comfortable and secure and can afford the life you want. But it doesn't matter to our relationship. I don't want to go back to being the daughter who only values you for what you can give me. Good. Because Jessica, I need you to know something else. Most of that money is already gone. What do you mean, gone? I gave it away. To charities, mostly. Organizations that help elderly people who've been abandoned by their families, people in situations I understood all too well. Her mouth fell open. Her mouth? You gave away hundreds of millions of dollars? I kept enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life, and I set up small trust funds for Emma and Michael's boys that they'll get access to when they turn 30. But yes, I gave away most of it. Why? Because I realized that having that much money would never fix what was wrong with our family. It would only make the dysfunction more expensive. I realized that if my children could only love me when I was useful to them financially, then they didn't really love me at all. She was quiet for a long time. Do you regret it? Giving away the money? Not for a second. It was the best decision I ever made. Even if it meant losing us for 2 years? Especially because it meant losing you for 2 years. Because losing you taught me that I could survive without you, and that gave me the power to demand that you treat me better. And you rising to that challenge taught you that you were capable of being a better person than you thought you were. Jessica wiped her eyes and looked at me with something I hadn't seen there in years. Respect. Mom, you're amazing. Like, really amazing. You had more money than most people see in a lifetime. And instead of using it to buy our love back, you used it to find out if we were capable of loving you without it. And you were. Eventually, after a lot of growing up. The best kind of love story, I said. She laughed and hugged me again. I love you, Mom. Not because of anything you can give me or do for me, but because you're wise and strong and kind, and I'm lucky to be your daughter. I love you too, sweetheart. All of you, exactly as you are now. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, I sat in my beautiful apartment looking out at the city lights and thinking about the journey that had brought me to this moment. 3 years ago, I was a woman who measured her worth by how much she could give away, who bought love with sacrifice and still ended up alone on Christmas. I was someone who had forgotten that I was a person worthy of respect and care, not just a resource to be depleted by other people's needs. Now I was someone who knew the difference between being loved and being used, someone who had learned to set boundaries and maintain them, someone who understood that real love doesn't require payment, doesn't come with conditions, doesn't disappear when you can't provide what someone wants from you. I'd won the lottery, but that wasn't the prize that changed my life. The real prize was learning to value myself enough to demand that other people value me too. The real prize was discovering that I could be loved for who I was, not just for what I could give. The real prize was finding out that it's never too late to start over, to become the person you were always meant to be, to build relationships based on genuine affection instead of financial transaction. The real prize was freedom. As I got ready for bed that night, I thought about all the people watching videos like this one, people who might be living in situations similar to what mine used to be, people who give and give and give and still feel unappreciated, unloved, taken for granted. I thought about what I'd want them to know, that your worth isn't determined by how much you can provide for other people. That love that has to be purchased isn't really love at all, that it's possible to be alone without being lonely, and it's possible to be surrounded by family and still feel completely isolated. That setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. That people will treat you exactly as badly as you allow them to treat you. That it's never too late to demand respect, to prioritize your own needs, to discover who you are when you're not just serving everyone else's purposes. That real relationships are built on mutual care and appreciation, not on one person giving everything and another person taking everything. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone else's selfishness. That you are worthy of love that doesn't come with a price tag. As I turned out the lights, I felt something I'd never experienced before in my adult life. Complete peace with who I was and how I was living. I was loved by people who wanted me in their lives. I had relationships built on respect and genuine affection. I was financially secure but not dependent on anyone else's needs to define my value. I was finally, truly free. So let me ask you this. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where you felt more like a resource than a person? Have you ever wondered if someone loved you or just loved what you could provide for them? If this story feels familiar to you, I want you to know that you deserve better. You deserve to be valued for who you are, not just for what you can give. You deserve relationships that fill you up instead of emptying you out. And if you're in a situation like the one I used to be in, please know that it's never too late to start demanding the respect you deserve. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of your own experiences or someone you know, please like this video and share it. Sometimes we all need to be reminded that we're worth more than what we can give away. And don't forget to subscribe, because everyone deserves to hear messages about their own worth, their own value, their own right to be treated with love and respect. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share what I learned about the difference between being loved and being used. And remember, you are worthy of real love, the kind that doesn't require payment. You deserve so much more than you've been settling for.